beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I like to post little lifestyle videos, beauty, fashion, tips like this about kind of wellness, self-care. I am going to be starting to do that more because it's something that interests me, something that has helped me a lot. So we're going to be talking about that. We gotta just cover the basics. You know what self-care is. It is just the intentional act or art of taking care of yourself, taking care of your basic needs, even diving into those more indulgent desires and wants, like taking a nice foamy bath, that sort of thing. But first, we will talk about the most basic form of self-care, physical self-care. If you struggle with depression, anxiety, any sort of mental illness, you might have days where you struggle to just get out of bed. And on those days, I can't ask you, and no one can ask you, to hop into a nice indulgent bath with cute little rose petals in it, or even put on a nice face mask. That is gonna be too much on those days. There are kind of three tiers to self-care. The first one is the very basic level. If you think of the food pyramid, this is gonna be the foundational, like getting all your most basic needs met. So on those days when you struggle to just get out of bed, the physical self-care is actually going to just be getting up out of bed, getting a glass of water, drink the entire thing, making sure you've eaten, make yourself some breakfast, some lunch, eat something nourishing, and don't care about how healthy it is. That is pretty important, because on those days, especially if you struggle with an eating disorder or something like that, you can't have that also weighing on your brain. You have to just eat something. Maybe it's ramen noodles because that's quick to make, or a box of Kraft mac and cheese, or a zebra cake. That is one of my favorite depression meals. Give your body some fuel. It really, really needs it. On those days, you gotta just do the basic bare minimum. Like, if I can't bring myself to do anything else today, I need to take care of that just really foundational part of the pyramid, because nothing else is going to happen. I can't build on it if I am dehydrated and hungry and dirty. So the first tier of self-care might not apply to everyone, but if you have a mental illness or depression or anything like that, you know what I'm talking about, and you definitely have those days that you can't get out of bed, and covering those basic needs first is so important on those days. So now we get into the second tier of self-care, and that one is a little bit more fun. We're getting past the really basic foundational forms of self-care, and we're getting up to the more social, mental, emotional, spiritual forms of self-care. If you have more of a normal brain, this is probably the most foundational part of self-care to you, because you cover those basic needs every day. You don't really have to think about it. So number one is, I've never actually heard this term before, but social self-care. And that is going to be things like talking to a really good friend who makes you feel really good and you love being around them. Going out in public counts. Even if you only talk to like the barista or the waitress, going out in public, I feel like, is a form of social self-care, especially if you're having a hard time like leaving the house that day. Investing in your relationships, like your marriage, your dating relationship, your friendships, that all is under the social self-care. There's also practical self-care, and this is really boring, but it's things like keeping up with your appointments, make that appointment with your therapist and go to it, paying your bills, keeping up with your schedule, your work, your school, projects, all that good stuff that you really don't want to do. It is not self-care to procrastinate and watch TV for hours instead of doing something that's really pressing that is only going to lead to more stress later. And that brings me to a good point about self-care. It's good right now in the present moment, but it's also taking care of future you. So if you're doing things that feel really good right now, but aren't good for future you, that doesn't count as self-care. So that is practical self-care, making sure all the practical things in your life are taken care of so that future you doesn't have to worry about an overdue bill or an appointment that you missed or a homework assignment that you just let go. Bye-bye. Also in the second tier is mental self-care. So this can be a lot of things, but for me it is reading, writing, doing things that really activate my brain, like even doing a puzzle instead of vegging out and watching TV. Do things that activate your brain and are engaging to your brain because that's good for you. And when you're not in school anymore, like me, you don't have a lot of those mental challenges in your everyday. So doing things that do challenge your brain, and that's a form of self-care too. There is emotional self-care, like journaling, talking to your therapist, talking to people that really love you and are good listeners about how you feel, like getting out your emotions, especially if you're a verbal processor like my husband. Also, the last one in this tier is spiritual self-care. So if you are religious or have any faith that you follow, doing things that help you connect to your faith or your community, that's really good for you. So for me, it's going to church, reading my Bible almost every day, doing things that just kind of connect to your soul and remind you that you're not just a bag of bones trudging around earth. Those are all in that second tier of the triangle, which I totally made up as I was talking, but I think it makes sense. These are all things that are a step up from your basic needs, but they're things that make your life go better, make you feel really good, help you take care of your present self and also your future self. And lastly, the fun one, the one that we normally think about when we think of self-care or when we search for self-care on Pinterest, is sensory self-care. So that are things that really engage your senses, obviously, really kind of make you feel luxurious and pampered. They're things that are more focused on indulgence and joy rather than covering your basic needs. So of course, taking a bubble bath. I love taking baths and I think it's a great time to just soak in hot water and not think about anything. So that's really good. That definitely engages your senses. It is warm, it smells good. It's time just to yourself where you're not having to do anything. Also, doing a face mask. That's really good for your skin. Good for you now because it feels good and it's fun to put on a face mask. Also good for future you because your skin will be glowing. Lighting a candle, putting on some perfume that is your favorite, even if you're just chilling at home. Baking some cookies, really baking anything. Curling up with a nice cozy blanket, some ice cream, just indulgence is the key to sensory self-care. You're trying to engage your senses a little bit and find joy in really little things like a nice smelling candle or a nice hot cup of tea. So don't overthink it. Don't go to Pinterest and get overwhelmed by all of these self-care ideas. On different days, you're gonna reach different tiers. Maybe like on a certain day, you're feeling really good. So obviously you covered the most foundational first tier because you're feeling really good that day. You got some water, you jumped out of bed, made some breakfast, like you're good. Some days you have to think about it. Some days you have to get yourself out of bed, get yourself a glass of water, make yourself pay that bill that's due. I just wanted there to be knowledge out there that self-care is not just bubble baths. If you can't get out of bed, how are you gonna take a bath? So I hope this video helped you. I'm sending lots of love no matter how you feel today. Thank you for watching. If you want more videos like this, let me know in the comments down below, because I love talking about like mental health and self-care and little tips like that. They've helped me in the past, so I am trying to do my part and give you ideas as well. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!